He effectively controls everything in South.
Guess I'm editing that part, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, Gloucester Township.
I almost did a hey too.
Welcome to the Inside GT Talk podcast with from GT Observer. I'm Joe Allen. That's Keith Gibbons, and we're going to talk about. We normally talk about some stuff that's going on here in the GT Talk and surrounding Facebook groups, all the Township Talk Facebook groups to see what's going on.
Yeah, we've had a topic though recently that made national news, and it's not being talked about. So we're going to talk about it on Inside GT Talk here.
This is crazy too. It's crazy how much it's not getting talked about, because it's enormous. It's somebody that has been here for controlling South Jersey for 30 years.
Wow, 30. I think it's more like a decade is more of what the allegations are around.
Well, when you go back to the power of it,
I know.
Yeah, they say like 3 decades worth of power here in New Jersey.
We're trying to stick to facts here that are known or allegations and not so much opinion. So
try not to get murdered. That's what I'm saying.
Well, or sued. You know,
that too.
I have literally seen lawsuit papers come from these people to. You've seen them too, of saying, yeah, you said this about us, and that's not true. So it's a defamation, lawsuit. So we're gonna try and stick to some facts here, and this might be why some people don't talk about it, because they are intimidated by it, which is also part of the allegations around it.
Yeah. So first,
who are we talking about?
Oh yeah, man, George Norcross.
George E.
Now
Norcross.
you've heard the name. You've heard the name here, and if you are a subscriber to our to the Gloucester Township Observer podcast, where we go through council meetings, our big long intro has lots of pictures of him and his brother Donald, and the kind of the theory here in South Jersey is, look, everything politically that's done here
starts there, and that's where that whole thing is 100% right. You watching it. Where's the money go? Who's in charge? All these things. We aren't the only ones. We're not the crazy nutcases that you might have thought of us being.
Yeah.
As the Attorney General of of New Jersey has brought allegations of racketeering and other 13 charges total, against Norcross. So
yeah,
he's arguably, like you said, the most powerful person, right?
Yeah, so that's what others have said. He's arguably the most powerful people, or one of the most powerful people in New Jersey, including.
But he's not elected.
Yeah, he's they say arguably the most powerful unelected person in New Jersey, and some have even said he is more powerful than some governors that we've had here in New Jersey. We've been ringing this bell for years now, saying that look, that this is like, we can't beat this machine. Like, this is the guy that runs the machine.
Yeah. And
we can't beat this machine. So it's basically, when we've gone through machine politics before, but he
has a tremendous amount of power in raising money. For candidates. Basically putting people in positions, in office because of that, that money. Money is power, in that respect there, right?
It's kind of in this situation here too. It's either like, look, you get on board, or if you're not on board, then that money's going to go against you. So It's not only just like some folks will just raise money for candidates they like, but in this situation, it's kind of like,
you're either with us or against us.
Yeah, if you're not with us, then we're going to spend the money against you. So there's a lot of influence here, and he's incredible at raising money.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've seen incredible amounts of money here raised in Gloucester Township from kind of Norcross partnered firms, and some of them, Connor Strong and Buffalo, we know, is one of the firms that our township does business with, has donated money to campaigns here.
Oh,
so
yeah, multiple.
That's a direct thing where some of the other companies are just kind of partnered with them. But it's an incredible amount of influence here, and we've been kind of saying this before. But it's just like you said, we always just felt like nut jobs that nobody was listening to.
Now it's sort of a vindication, I guess is that the word to use?
Yeah. Now they're saying this. Now they're saying this. Like people are saying this in other states on their news.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was on CNN. It's been out there, but the amount of crickets that you hear versus, what a few of us have been like, wow, look at that, it's actually coming through. It's good to know that while there's a perception of like an us and them level of like you can't be touched if you're a certain you're a politician or you're that or you're famous, you can't do two different tiers of justice. This was a vindication of like, okay, actually maybe there is, even if it's just for the day or the month or whatever, that something's being done. And an attorney general who is, so he's a very progressive Democrat,
yes,
who's bringing charges against a Democrat Party boss, gives you some sort of like, this is not a party thing, this is a corruption issue, not a party thing. The Norcross allegations include Republican Governor Chris Christie, which we'll get to also later on. So it's widespread all around, and it's kind of the allegations are around crimes, not party. It's not a retaliation type of a scenario here.
Yeah, so when we get into like just the ownership that other people say, so you watch many different programs that talk about how, and they all say the same thing. Like, look, he runs South Jersey.
Yeah,
this isn't just something like that we made up a couple of years ago. It was like other people are saying this, and that's kind of what the first clip is here.
And it gets down to the municipal level, and that's where it's not just like a higher up thing. It gets down to like the municipal level, which is where we tend to focus on is what our local government's doing, and when we're calling out Connor Strong and Buffalo invoice or something like that, it's because
you see it in the indictment. The mayor from Camden,
right?
And arguably he has a lot of mayors under his power. The mayor from Camden was the one that was also mentioned this indictment here. So clip number 1 here kind of shows us a little bit.
Okay.
He effectively controls everything in South Jersey, from local and county politics up to the lawmakers who represent the area. He is somebody who sits on the boards of a major hospital down there. He also has an insurance brokerage, and that's a firm that has a lot of lucrative contracts with municipalities throughout the state.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of what we've been saying for a long time here.
This is Politico saying that. It's not a GT Observer saying that.
I've seen it. I've seen this on I'm kind of a big national politics kind of buff too, so I watch a ton of that, and I've seen this on like all of those shows. So it's pretty crazy.
Well, how it's all gone down has been kind of bizarre, as well. But yeah, we're just giving you kind of a little bit of background around who George Norcross is.
And the next clip I pulled here too I thought was interesting too, because look, Norcross, a member of the Democratic Committee, big Democrat that everybody thinks Democrat, and which kind of what I also think part of the silence is, because it's like, our team has been winning for decades, so we're not really gonna say anything. It sucks he's going away, but everybody's quiet, right? Everybody's quiet, but also I kind of feel like people kind of had the wool pull over their eyes there, because was he truly a Democrat? Because he seemed to work for everyone.
I would argue that he wasn't, but that's a speculation of mine. I don't know that for a fact.
My theory for the longest time was a lot of these guys, they're not Democrats. They're not Democrats, But they realized to keep the power in New Jersey, a blue Democrat state, the best way to do it is to become the Democrat machine.
Correct.
Because you're automatically going to win. You don't have to earn the votes. People are just going to go there, and they're just going to vote because it's New Jersey, and that's what they do.
Right.
So,
and we've had this conversation on the podcast before. Not, in this area, it's the Democrat machine. And there are other areas in the country where it's the Republican machine. And if I know myself, if I were in those areas and there was a Republican machine, I would be against that as well. You know what I mean? I would be a Democrat to be against the Republican machine. It's just chosen that here because of that particular state, in our opinion. I
thought
in reality.
I thought clip 2 was interesting here because it's go ahead, I'll talk about it afterwards.
But I am honored that George Norcross is here today, and I'm even more honored to call him my partner in this rebirth of Camden. We did it, George, and thank you for being my partner.
Man, so whenever I don't like the governor of New Jersey, I always get reminded, well, it wasn't any better under the Republican. And I'm like,
true, yeah.
That was not a good Republican. That was Chris Christie, the guy who rose, the guy that we can thank for Bridgegate, gas tax, We used to, that was one thing we had. That was the one thing we had. We had cheap gas, right? And now we don't even have that.
Oh,
so yeah, thanks Chris Christie for ruining it for anybody else. And but yeah, that was Norcross was arguably the most powerful in his time, while Christie was governor.
Yeah.
So that's who he is. By the way, I forgot to note this down, but so his brother Philip, also mentioned in the indictment, is he's the one that
attorney.
leads. Yeah, he's the attorney who says, I forget what the quote was. It was that he's an attorney, but he doesn't really practice law. He kind of just waits to see what George wants to do next. That's kind of his job.
Yeah.
So, but he's involved in Connor Strong and Buccalow. He's works with that.
So Connor Strong and Buccalow is an insurance broker, and they have a lot of very lucrative municipal contracts. So if you were to Google Connor Strong and Buccalow and Pennsauken, for instance, there was a study that was done, or not a study, an investigation, I guess you'd call it, around if you were to use the state prescribed, or whatever you call it, like insurance that the state would provide to teachers, it was for the school district, versus the Connor Strong and Buccalow provided insurance for the same exact coverage, you would have saved 1.6. That 1.6 number always comes up, doesn't it? But it was, I believe it was like 1.6, somewhere around that. It was over $1 million you would have saved if you did not use Connor Strong and Buccalow. But yet we use them because that's what you're supposed to do if you're part of the machine and you're supposed to use his insurance company. They're still providing the coverage. They're doing a service. They are, but you overpaid. So the overpayment part is just supposed to be that's what I'm going to put that in my pocket, and we'll let you guys get on.
Put it in your pocket. Sometimes you give it back, campaign donations, stuff like that. So that's the pay to play thing. Allegedly, although it's been it's on paper every.
Yeah. So what are they alleging? What are the things they're alleging here? If we played clip 3, does it explain any of that?
A little bit, yeah.
Is that Norcross, with a handful of allies over a number of years, really leveraged his influence and his power to effectively bully developers and to extract money from the state for their own personal and financial interests.
Right.
So it's been upwards of, from what I gather, like $220-some million that they basically, in tax breaks, are getting from the state, back from the state. They haven't gotten it all yet, but over the next several years, they will have gotten this 220. I think it was like $226 million that they would have gotten back. There's a whole lot going on with that whole Camden area, because there was kind of a failed attempt to go after him for tax breaks that he gave to other companies, incentives, from, I think it was like Subaru and a bunch of those places that were outside of Camden, that they kind of made up this whole thing that said, well, look, Subaru was going to leave New Jersey completely. We saved him. We helped him here because we gave him this great spot in Camden for this big, tax break. And, we're members of Subaru, were basically talked to the media and said, we were never going anywhere. So that was like leaked, but apparently that never went anywhere. I think the Attorney General went after him for that too. That didn't lead to anything.
So yeah, there's the claims you're talking about. There's a lot of, how do I put this safely? So, okay, some of the claims of, and I don't know if this is the right part to talk about it, but you were saying about the bringing the things into Camden and the credits and bringing companies in. There are good things that have happened because of what he has done, and I've given credit to our local government here, that they do good things, right? However, they do good things when you're on their team. There's another podcast that we're doing on a bill that's being passed in town around something. How am I trying to say this here? I don't know what we were saying. It brings all the way down to the municipal level, right? The municipal level deals with a lot of nonprofits, right? The nonprofits are doing outreaches in the community, whether it's the scholarship committee that's giving money to kids. There's the main stage who's providing performance abilities for kids who don't play sports, and they're into to dance and musicals and all that stuff, and all those good things that happen are funded and helped along by our machine, right? However, if you're outside of the machine and you're not part of them, you're not allowed to be part of it, right? Yeah. And that's the intimidation factors that are being alleged and accused of, because there's a difference between being bullied into to doing something and being allowed to do to do something. And the way that they're stating, not me here because I'm not getting sued over this, but the way they're stating is if you're not part of his team, you can't help but do those good things. So it's it's okay, yeah, we brought all this redevelopment down to Camden, but hey, Drainoff, you're not part of our team, and we want to do this here, so we're going to screw you over while we build for our friends, and you're not part of our friends, so you can't benefit from all this stuff. And that's the kind of the allegations that they're talking about here. And the Attorney General has gone after him and has put out in his indictment. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, and do you understand? Well, all right.
Yeah.
I think I ruined the whole segment. Sorry, folks. But anyway, so here's a summary from a news clip. Let's play this.
Yeah. New Jersey's Attorney General announced a sweeping indictment today charging an influential Democratic power broker and a number of others with racketeering. The former mayor of Camden is among those charged. New Jersey correspondent Trish Hartman live in Trenton now, where the key defendant had a literal front row seat as the charges were unveiled today. Trish.
Yeah, Brian, he was in the room. Now, the indictment is 111 pages, 6 defendants all charged with racketeering and other crimes. The Attorney General says they illegally took over property on the Camden Waterfront and used their influence over politicians to advance their business interests.
The Norcross enterprise manipulated government programs and processes designed to attract development and investment to instead suit their own financial desires, instead of contributing to the successes of the city of Camden.
After the indictment was unsealed, New Jersey Attorney General Matt Platkin announced charges against 6 people, outlining alleged illegal activities led by businessman George Norcross, focused on properties in the Camden Waterfront area. It's alleged that the accused acquired property through coercion and extortion and collected millions in government-issued tax credits.
From at least as early as 2012 through the present, the state alleges that the Norcross enterprise used its power and influence over government officials to craft legislation tailored to serve the interests of the Norcross enterprise.
George Norcross and attorneys were there at the news conference today, sitting in the front row, and were even asked to move just before it started.
Could I just ask you not to take a reserved seat?
He refused, and the press conference went on without disruption. Norcross spoke after the announcement, denying any wrongdoing.
I want to go to trial in 2 weeks. I want Matt Plotkin to come down here and try this case himself because he's a coward.
George's brother, Philip Norcross, was also charged. His attorney spoke today.
We came down 10 days ago after begging for literally years for the opportunity to answer questions about any of the misinformation that you heard spewed upon you from that podium today.
Defendant William Tambusi, an attorney, said he doesn't know why he was included. It's also alleged that former Camden Mayor Dana Redd abused her position to help Norcross in the scheme. Her attorney says she is surprised by the charges and has done nothing wrong. Now, business partners Sidney Brown and John O'Donnell were also charged in this scheme. We were not able to reach them this afternoon. All of the defendants are scheduled for arraignment July 9th in Mercer County Superior Court. We're live in Trenton, New Jersey. Trish Hartman, Channel 6, Action News. Brian?
Yes, some bold-faced names in that indictment today. Trish, thank you.
So that was Action News, right? Channel 6.
Yeah, and I think it's important to show some of these clips from these large news organizations so people understand,
right.
like it's a pretty big deal. Now, him sitting in the front row is
intimidation.
This is on par because this guy has, the claim has always been
right.
That,
what he's being alleged of doing is intimidating people, and he's doing exactly
like,
that.
This mob mentality, right? This old school like 70s, 80s
right.
like gangster kind of mob mentality here. That was it. Like you go and sit, and you would go and sit and intimidate, and that's exactly what happened. And I think you see him talk about afterwards, where he's calling the attorney general a coward.
He didn't address the charges against him. What he did was he was going to intimidate the attorney. I'd like to see you come down here and try me.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
This is a guy that he doesn't have any fear, right? There's no fear of
who's going to touch him. Is what he thinks.
Like he feels like he's untouchable. This is the guy that went and decided to drape a flag over the side of the Eagles Stadium and got thrown out of there, and was kind of like, hey, and was going to sue the Eagles.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting.
We skipped over the fact that he wasn't wearing any socks.
He did show up with no socks on.
Suit on, dress shoes.
That's how they do in Florida, I guess. He's a Florida resident now.
Yeah.
He's moved down there.
I saw somebody some news program that was one of the YouTube. I don't know if it was like Breaking Points or something like that. But they were like, "Hey, keep your Florida shit in Florida, will you?"
Florida man. But yeah, so we had the Attorney General release a. What's that type of indictment called? I think it's like a talking indictment, where it's basically, it spells out every bit of the allegations of what they have. So all the evidence is provided in there, so that he can't, extend this longer than, because the Attorney General right now only has about like 15 or so months left until he gets, or there's still a new election thing. So everything is there. So they can't drag it out through courts and be like, oh, we need this, the discovery and all that. He basically named everything. It's a 111-page long indictment.
If you look up the Norcross indictment, you can. It's a PDF. You can read it.
Right. So they gave you the proof. Everything is spelled out for you. There's not a secret around what it is. If you want to go and spell that all out yourself, you can. I think clip 5 plays some of the details around. I think there were 13 total allegations in the racketeering and all that charges. So I think clip 5 plays some of those.
We begin with a bombshell indictment. South Jersey Democratic power broker George Norcross was charged with racketeering today by New Jersey's Attorney General Matt Plotkin. The 13-count indictment charges Norcross with running a criminal enterprise that used coercion, extortion, and other criminal acts to obtain property on the Camden Waterfront. and through that acquisition, collect millions of dollars in government tax credits. He's accused of using threatening language to intimidate a land developer, saying he'd, quote, put a bat over his head, among other things, and of allegedly influencing legislation to benefit himself, allegedly saying in a recording, "This is for our friends." And the indictment names 5 other defendants involved in that criminal enterprise, including former Camden Mayor Dana Red, George Norcross's brother Philip, his lawyer Bill Tambusi, and business partners Sidney Brown and John O'Donnell.
This indictment alleges that a group of unelected private businessmen used their power and influence to get government at the state and local levels to aid their criminal enterprise and further its interests. Through their alleged acts, the Norcross enterprise was able to obtain the rights to build multiple buildings and obtain hundreds of millions of dollars in government-issued tax credits, among other benefits. That stops today.
And yes, that is George Norcross sitting in the front row staring down Attorney General Platkin. Norcross is widely considered one of the most powerful non-elected political leaders in the state and has led the South Jersey political machine for decades. Joining me now is investigative reporter Jeff Pillitz, who's long covered the Norcross machine and was in the room when the indictment was announced. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us. You were there in the room. You saw firsthand, as I just mentioned, George Norcross literally staring down the Attorney General as these allegations were dropped. But let's just take it back for a minute. This really stems from tax incentives that were given out in 2013 under then Governor Chris Christie. At the time, we know there was very little state oversight into what happened with those tax incentives. But can you just help us understand what some of these allegations are that are being that George Norcross and 5 other co-conspirators are being charged with?
Yes, basically, Attorney General Platkin is saying that Norcross has been conducting a criminal enterprise for at least a decade, and it basically had to do with getting control of properties in downtown Camden on the waterfront that were subject to gain from this extraordinary tax break that you mentioned before. So it's Norcross manipulating other agencies, manipulating property owners, manipulating approvals in the city of Camden and the county of Camden, so he and his business partners could get control of these properties. That's the allegation. And
then he says, to take it a step further, profited millions, right, in tax incentives over the years. And I think he said 100 million more. What were the numbers?
Him and his business partners directly got $287 million worth of tax breaks approved for that. They have not all received them yet. They get paid out every year incrementally. But Platkin mentioned that there's still maybe over $200 million of these tax breaks that George and his business partners and others that are associated with him in downtown Camden are liable to get. They're still eligible for those in the years to come.
The Attorney General cited text messages, recorded phone calls where there are threats of physical violence, other things that we can't say on this air on PBS, really emboldened, allegedly, recordings. Does it surprise you to see this body of evidence against someone like George Norcross,
yes,
these things in writing?
It does, because New Jersey does not have that history of going after, the state of New Jersey doesn't have the history of going after its own with this sort of, with these sorts of weapons and tools. We have at least 2 or 3 grand juries that I'm told of. We've had a years-long investigation. This is a serious deal. They're going after George Norcross on a RICO count. We're talking about extortion. We're talking about racketeering. This is about as gnarly as it gets.
So Michael Critchley is representing George Norcross. They held a press conference immediately after the Attorney General's press conference today. He calls the charges bogus. He's also furious. He says that the grand jury never interviewed Norcross or I believe any of the co-conspirators. Did you stay for that follow-up, and what do you make of their response?
Yes, I did. I stayed for it. His attorney is a very great showman, and it's pretty much standard practice that the target of a grand jury, the target is not really interviewed in front of the grand jury, and that's for the trial to happen. So they're saying their claim is that all this is just a vendetta by
by the Attorney General, that he was embarrassed from other things. He was embarrassed because his investigation of the tax breaks never yielded much. So that's what they're claiming. But they specifically, they were claiming that they never really got a chance to address these allegations, which is pretty much standard practice from George Norcross and his attorneys.
Just a few seconds left. What do you make of him sitting in that front row? Was that an intimidation tactic? And could that potentially hurt him down the road in front of a jury?
I think it was an intimidation tactic. I think the Attorney General indirectly called it an intimidation tactic. In his 25 years as a reporter in Trenton, I never saw anything that ballsy in my experience.
Well, there you go.
And that's George Norcross.
Yeah, well said. We'll leave it there. Jeff Pillitz, investigative reporter, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Joanna.
So I know it was a long clip there, but that kind of spelled it out pretty good, I thought. So
yeah, and it's stuff that we've heard about for years in other different situations. Mm-hmm. He's been caught in different clips on like cameras and stuff like that, using kind of intimidating things in the past.
Yeah, there's the Palmyra tapes. If you look that up,
that's right. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
But intimidation, and it's it's a local home issue here. It goes all the way down to to Gloucester Township. We make these claims around it, but the connections are all there.
Yeah, I posted an article probably a day or two afterwards. Because everybody, the ties to Gloucester Township. There are several mayors that have been mentioned before that are kind of under the Norcross machine, so to say. And I posted an article from a few years
about a year ago. Yeah,
but
is the Can Do Club? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think it was last year, because last year was his he started to do he went down to Florida. And he said, "Yeah,
I'm getting out of politics. I'm away from all this."
And
stuff
they said,
now.
"Well, who do you see kind of taking over down there?" And he mentioned a few names, some of which were indicted, but one that wasn't indicted, but was mentioned was our mayor.
Yeah, David, our mayor.
So as one of the powerful people in South Jersey to take over.
No, I don't know that anybody. I think they speculated around that. I don't think anybody they didn't. Just to clarify,
he mentioned,
right, but he didn't say he's taking over for me.
No. They didn't say he's taking over. They said he is one of the powerful people that could take over, that has potential to take over. That,
and he is. I mean, so David Mayer, our mayor. If you are not aware, there is what's called the Rutgers-Rowan Board of Governors, who oversees they have a lot of power. It's a government-funded agency. One of our commissioners, Nash, he gets paid like $275,000 a year, $275,000 a year to sit on his board that meets like 9 times a year. David Mayer is, I believe, he's the chair of that board. But Bill Tambusi, who was named in this indictment, who is Norcross's attorney, also sits on that same board. All of these people are all connected. They're thick as thieves, if you will, if they as a saying. And Mr. Tambusi was asked to step down or was thrown off. I'm not exactly sure what the how it went, but basically Rutgers-Rowan was saying, like, you were just indicted for racketeering. Like, you need to get off of this, this
Was he
board.
the one that didn't live?
He lives in Brigantine.
Yeah, and the requirement was, too, you also
have to live in Camden County.
Live in Camden County. He didn't live there, and he was on there. So, yeah. So I guess they eventually booted him off.
Yeah, I believe that they booted him off. I don't know that that's exactly true or not, so that's why I'm kind of being skeptical. But I think that it was because his term was up, like, from when he was indicted, because we'll see that we have another clip around that too. But there was the indictment happened. What was that? The 17th or something like that. I forget the exact date, but I think it was. I know I had a meeting that same day, so I think it was the 17th. And then they called for him to step down or to somebody mentioned it, like he's got to get out of there. So here's a picture of one of those. There was a pull up as what? So that's right in the middle. There is David R. Mayer, and to his right, your left, on the left of the screen, that's Bill Tambusi, and then that's Nash on the right hand side over there. This is from a video that was taken because they don't advertise these things very well. They don't want the public there, but because it is a publicly funded meeting, I don't want to say crashed it, but there was a few of us crashed their meeting and showed up, and this was from a recording of there. Me with my camera and whatnot, but that was that was from one of those things there. But I was just showing you that's Mr. Tambusi he was sitting next to, and on the board. You can look it up. You go on Google and you look up the Rutgers-Rowan Board of Governors. They meet 9 times a year, and let's see. There's a couple clips too of another journalist that showed up and started asking questions of them, because we're not the only people that go and question the local government, right? There was
this guy was great. Yeah,
he was a former Rutgers, student. What number are we on
6
here? 6? All right, let me just play clip 6.
Good afternoon, Board. Charlie Crownville, I'm the editor of New Brunswick Today, class of 2009. I'll begin by noting I requested a copy of the proposed meeting schedule for the coming year. Never received that information, so it's going to be hard to make an informed comment on that, but I will try. I will say these meetings are very unusual for several reasons. Even though you use the Zoom platform, they're not recorded unless the press or the public records them, which leads me to ask, what do you have to hide? Additionally, you limit public comments only to agenda items. You limit public comments only to 2 minutes per person. It's absurd that you only have a handful of public meetings every year, and some of you don't even live in New Jersey. It's even more outrageous that you require that advance notice from anyone who wants to speak at this podium. These are policies that put Rutgers out of step with other state boards and suppress the speech of our community, and they demonstrate your contempt for the public. But now let's talk about corruption. I'll draw your attention to Rutgers Senate Report S2308 regarding unethical behavior at these meetings, including the move where Mr. Tambusi was appointed to the Camden board in secret. As you all know, Mr. Tambusi was recently indicted for racketeering. I've reached out to the Rutgers administration for a comment on that indictment and sadly did not even get the courtesy of a response. I hope you will respond today on behalf of our university. Under the leadership of then-chair Mark Angelson, the board, of course, refused to name Mr. Tambusi, refused to say his name as the appointee. When asked specifically for this information at the meeting by me, you, Mr. Angelson, engaged in obstruction to install Mr. Tambusi on that board. It looked bad and it was corrupt. Whenever corruption is revealed, we need our leaders to change course, learn from past mistakes, and move forward. Instead, this board actively promotes and celebrates its corruption, giving yourselves honorary degrees and securing special personal benefits for yourselves. Look no further than the giant portrait on the wall of Vice Chair Angelson. How much money was spent on that disgusting thing? If you're not ready to stand up to the corruption and call it out, then you're part of the problem and you should resign from this board. The state of New Jersey and the Rutgers community deserves so much better.
I love that point, man. If you're not the one that's calling it out, then you're part of the problem.
That's right.
That is, that's good. Yeah, there are several big guys just kind of standing around.
Well, you'll see. I have another clip later on. That guy that was in the very middle of the screen there, it was standing to his left hand side there. He's there to intimidate, to intimidate the public. The public is not, they don't want them there. And that's what that guy brought up in that point. You can go back and listen to it. It's very interesting how they try to hide behind things and they don't want, and they'll limit you. Like, this is the kind of restraint that they put on our rights to go and question our government by, I know I've been called a nutcase for going, for doing things that I do, but it's our right to do that. Like, we have the right to question what's going on. They're spending our tax dollars, and this guy is going and asking them, why are you limiting? We could only ask you questions about what's on the agenda. They have eminent domain right. Like, they can go and take entire city blocks and be like, you know what, we're wiping this all out. All of you people need to relocate, and we're not allowed to question that unless it was on the agenda to do that. That's crazy.
And if you do, there's muscle there that's going to tell you to get out.
Yeah. So here's a clip of him catching.
And these aren't friendly people that'll like. Look, in Gloucester Township, they're a little more friendlier with the kind of the corruption, and they no, we would never do that. Not in this case. When you get to this level here, like look, there's muscle there that will just get you out, and they celebrate that.
Yeah. So there's another. This is and again, I know I've been called a nut with my First Amendment stuff and asking the questions around the First Amendment.
Hey, I hope the people have learned from your park episodes a little bit more about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so here's a perfect example. This journalist knows his rights as freedom of press, right? All right, guys at home, come on, let's do the test. What's covered under the First Amendment? There's 5 rights, right? Okay, one of them is freedom of the press. This guy is there asking questions of his government, and they try to intimidate him. They try to trespass his eyes, basically. Hold on, let's see. Clip 7. So that's Bill Tambusi there.
On the indictment, sir? Are you going to resign your seat on the records board?
My term expires in 10 days.
And you'll be leaving or staying?
Here comes the intimidation.
Listen, for future reference, this is restricted, okay? Just so you know that. Just so your camera,
so you know
that, this is restricted.
Restricted
okay?
to who? And
restricted
for what
to them, okay? You guys are out here, they're in there.
Yeah.
Simple as that. If you cause a disruption, you won't be coming back in here, okay? I'll take your name, okay? We'll make sure that you don't come back in here if you're going to cause a disruption.
See that? Yeah. An us and them scenario. How about if you're a public employee or public, elected, whatever, you're paid by you work for us.
Yeah.
What part of that is that?
Crazy.
Us and them. He literally just said, "Oh, that's reserved for them."
Them.
You sit out there, you peon. You're not allowed to look over this way. You can't film this way. And the guy's asking, like, who? Well, reserved for who? Them.
Yeah, so
I'll get your name and you won't be allowed. What, really? In public I won't be allowed? Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, I would love to know who the journalist was there and if they've got any more information coming up on that, because I feel like
I did. Yeah, so I found that guy and I started following him. He doesn't have. Either way, we could put a link to his channel, down there to give him credit for for those clips. The other clips, we have credit right in the the watermarks on them. But it's just this is the kind of the same thing here, where I just so happen to go in to check to see if our government put up a agenda for a council meeting that's supposed to be done by law, and I get basically talked about like I'm not classy. Have some class. Yeah. How about F you? It's just I don't know. They're just above everything. They do not want any transparency and no accountability for anything. But this Norcross indictment helps give you some hope that it's not all us and them. You know what I mean? There is. I don't know. It's good to restore some of my faith in the system. That
for me, from such an unlikely source too, because look, our attorney general. I've kind of followed politics here in Jersey. I have not cared for this attorney general, and this came out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, okay, but this guy's different. He's like we said before, he's from the progressive group of people, and you kind of got progressives, and you've got the. I don't know, man. They're not even. I don't even call them Democrats. They're just
they're Republicans that call themselves Democrats, right?
Yeah, they're like the machine
because they're part of the.
And then you just got the regular Republicans who are just I don't know. We just want to go government, and then that machine's in the middle there, and then both sides but they have all the power, and both sides are just fighting. And look, the progressives came out on top here, and they did the right thing, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Well, it's not for nothing. To your point there, the Democrats of the Norcross side of things there, if you will, because we're talking about the progressives versus the other Democrats there, had a big thing this year with the ballots. That's one of the allegations in this this indictment about the ballot. Maneuvering or whatever whatever you want to say about.
They were not allowing people in.
Right, so they would have control over that and bully the the ballots and say you can't be on here, you got to do this, that, and the infighting in there. So that's kind of where some of that comes from. But I was given a warning on another topic before, saying that this attorney general, he's young. He's like 35 years old. He's young, eager, looking to make a name for himself, and man, did he make a name for himself. He is now indicted for 13 charges to George Norcross, who's one of the most powerful, what do they call it, the power brokers, of the
hopefully this attorney general doesn't wind up like
unalived.
I was trying to think of a good word. Unalive is a good one. Unalive, kind of like the Sheridan family.
Yeah.
Who look? There is at the end of the indictment press conference. There was a reporter out there who said, "Hey, does this mean you're going to look further into the John Sheridan case?
Murder suicide, whatever they called it?"
If you're not familiar with that. John Sheridan, former head of Cooper Hospital System.
He's CEO number 1 in the indictment.
He was, he was found dead with his wife.
Stabbed. They were both stabbed, but somehow he stabbed himself. And
and somebody came in. They did the investigation. They were like, "Oh yeah, it was suicide," and then it was kind of almost like, if you look into some of the details, you're like, that's not a suicide. And then somebody said, well, look, at the time he was, they made allegations that he was arguing with Norcross at the time. More information on that in...
so the woman that asked that question at
Nancy Solomon.
Yeah, so Nancy has a podcast out if you go and... It's called The Dead End Podcast.
The Dead End Podcast by
and
Nancy Solomon.
It's a great murder mystery type of podcast. Really well done. Great production level. She has way more production level than we have here. We're way lacking, but you will enjoy it. If you enjoy this story, you'll enjoy the podcast. You'll learn a lot about it, about L3 and the property down there. There's a lot you can learn out of that podcast. Nancy did a great job with that, and it's great. We give her props on that and a little shout out. I'm sure. I don't know. No one will watch it from us, but maybe she could give us a shout out.
Call her up, see if she'll come down. Get on the podcast.
But so that's pretty much it. We just wanted to go over that what should have been a talk of the town and wasn't a talk of the town this week.
No, and that's the other thing too. When you looked at New Jersey political Twitter, like I follow all the people in New Jersey political, and there were 2 New Jersey representatives that came out with statements against this whole thing and talked about Norcross and how he was bad and how they disavowed it all. But that was it. And then, some even the New Jersey political writers were like, wow, what's it like to not have any balls that you can't even come out and talk against what's happened here? You are all these other politicians here in New Jersey. 2 of them spoke out about it.
Oh, that's pathetic.
The rest of them didn't. I mean, look.
What was that saying? If you aren't speaking out about it, you're part of the problem.
I would say, hey, maybe shoot your representatives here, Moriarty, Hutchison,
Cody,
Miller,
yeah.
Shoot them a message. Say, hey, do you have any statements on this? I don't think that they're going to have a statement for you, because nobody else has.
No.
I did go to all their social media for days to see if they had any kind of statements. I didn't see any. So,
yeah. Well, anyway, there's something happening. I don't know what exactly the stage of it is, but something on July 9th. I guess I don't know. It's not sentencing it, but it's like the setting of the date or the setting of something with the trial. So this is going to be ongoing. We'll keep you guys updated if there are any changes. But just figured we would talk about it. So, how do we do our like and subscribe thing, Joe? I don't know where that is.
Subscribe button here.
That's the Observer one. But
yeah, that's us too.
Hey,
we do the GT Observer podcast where we cover council meetings bi-weekly, and then on the other weeks we cover big items in basically in the town, all the townships around us, kind of what's going on here in South Jersey. So follow us on there. You'll get access to both of them. Hit the notification bell so you know when we're live, because we're not always on every Monday. Sometimes it's a Tuesday. So
yeah,
you
never know. All right, how do we end this show here?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Long one.